Hello, oodles and noodles. We are back for another review time, checking out some more fantasy books. I wanted to continue speaking about the Codex Alera series. I've done 2 reviews of the first books, the Furies of Calderon and the Academ's Fury. So you can check those out. I'll link them in the description. Definitely, if you have not read those books, I would not recommend listening to this review. At a certain point, when a series is long enough, I'm not going to be as careful with the spoilers. At a certain point, I'll just basically assume you know the story for book 1 and book 2, which bleeds a lot into, of course, the 3rd book. There are 6 books in this series. It is quite a large series. Jim Butcher, who's more well known for his Dresden Files series, is prolific in terms of the length of his series. He never does short series as far as I know. So this is, as far as I'm concerned, one of his best works. I prefer it more than the Dresden Files. Maybe it's because I'm not so much of an urban fantasy kind of guy, but I love the Codex Alera. I really enjoyed Furies of Calderon. I enjoy Academ's Fury, and this series, one of the best things it does is the pacing just keeps on picking up. It's already a fast-paced novel starting in book 1, where our main character Tavi is quite a young boy at that time, and yet still manages realistically to portray him dealing with much more of an action-oriented kind of storyline without having to obviously fight. He's still very young, and especially within this world, which is a world of Furies, and of course other races that are just significantly stronger than a normal human, Tavi has to use much more of his brains, his wits. And this continues on in this book. In book 3, A Cursor's Fury, excuse my blasphemy, I still haven't taken off the whole book market pricing thing. I hate that they do that on books. Especially nowadays, it's very popular to go into bookstores and there's this adaptation sticker or some kind of other sticker that they put on. Sometimes they're nice enough to put a sticker that's really easy to take off, but other times it's just disaster pants. So Cursor's Fury, of course, continues our story of Tavi as he tries to deal with all the threats that are basically coming at the exact same time into the Kingdom of Alera. And Tavi, of course, is a bit unique, as you know from the other 2 books. He does not have Furies, but by this point in time, we're really starting to understand why. There's a lot of things that, of course, you probably figured out by the end of book 2, quite a bit of them, such as his history, who his actual mother is, who his actual father is. These are kind of hinted at, sometimes very not subtly, in the other books. But just in case you were still wondering, it is pretty much answered in this book straight off the bat, although Tavi is still in the dark about this, which makes it quite kind of interesting for us as the readers. This is pretty common in most novels for the reader to know something that the actual character does not, but this kind of a secret, this big of a secret, is interesting. And so we end up finding out a lot more about his past, about why he cannot use Furies, and where that's going to lead, of course, and really ties in a lot more of the Knim in this book. So you start finding out a lot more about their culture. Even though we did see a little bit of that through Varg in the other 2 books, the Knim were sort of on the sideline. You just see them a bit in book 2, but book 2 was, of course, much more focused on the Vord. And now book 3 is dealing way more with the Knim and what a threat they are. And of course, it's going to continue on. We'll only get a peek still. Even though it's quite a large part of book 3, we're still only getting a peek at their culture, at their peoples, and we don't really know where they come from, what are they like back in their homeland. And so that's really fascinating. We do get to see a lot more of Maximus's history, so Tavi's closest friend. We do get to see a little bit more of the other cursors. Of course, we're still following along with Amara and Asana. And Amara, of course, is getting into as many problems as she possibly can to help the First Lord keep peace. And the main enemy in this book is Caleres. So Princess Caleres, he's one of the High Lords, so these people who have tons of Furycraft at their disposal. And Caleres is basically, I forget the name of him, but in book 1, in Furies of Calderon, we see a steadholder who's basically a slaveholder as well, and just this cruel piece of crap who utterly enslaves Isana and who luckily escapes. In this book, Caleres is that guy on crack cocaine. He's evil. He's a piece of crap. He's very much enjoyable. He's one of those people who's just power hungry. But you can see already in this book that Caleres is kind of the focal point that's going to cause a phenomenal amount of problems. Not that he cannot be dealt with himself, but the openings he creates, the fissures he creates throughout the kingdom are what going to lead to these problems with the Kanim and these problems with other creatures and races in the world. And Tavi is smack dab in the middle. And interestingly enough, the other books, obviously in the first book, Tavi was just this shepherd and he was kind of dealing with the Marat and the High Lords. In book 2, he was an academic dealing really in the microcosm of trying to protect the First Lord in his moment of weakness. In book 3, he's actually stuck into one of the Aleran legions, and he's under an assumed name, and nobody knows who he is. And of course, this is extremely problematic and dangerous for him because he doesn't have fury. So it's interesting to see again Tavi try to navigate this world where everybody has furies, he does not, and he has to go by the skin of his teeth and just his wits and figure things out. And you really start to see, now that Tavi is an adult, how dangerous he can be. And of course, circumstances assist him in getting into even more trouble and positions where he has to try to use his brains to get everybody and save everybody from quite a bit of danger. Simultaneously, of course, like I said, Amara is just putting herself into the shit. Only luckily enough, Bernard is there to help her out now. I really find Bernard and Amara's relationship to be one of the most enjoyable relationships in fantasy. It is a love story without it being ridiculous. There was enough of a slow build-up towards it where they went from initial attraction to obviously learning to appreciate each other as a man and a woman, and you really just get to see this loving relationship, which doesn't actually often happen in most fantasy novels. You might have your main character falling in love, and although Amara is, for all intents and purposes, a main character, it's interesting to see a really steady, equal kind of beautiful, loving, calm relationship between a man and a woman in these stories. Even when it's a heroine and our main character is the only, let's say, main character, it's a female, usually the love story is like fractured and there's so many problems, whereas this is very much an adult relationship. It's a mature adult relationship where, of course, they have problems. There's loads of things happening. The way they handle it and the way Jim Butcher just makes them be together as people is kind of inspiring, really. You can apply it to most things in your life. So it's really nice to see that kind of relationship. Tavi, of course, is continuing his interesting relationship with Katai, where they're bonded now through the Marat bond. And that becomes even more interesting at the end of the book. There's a nice surprise little twist in 2 different ways that is really going to lead to some interesting history, like some possibilities even between the Marat and humans and what that can lead to. I also just love the fact that there's so much Roman history in this book. So you get to see, again, Tavi blending into this Aleran legion, which effectively is a Roman legion. So for those who don't recall, Jim Butcher basically took this history of this legion of Romans that had vanished in the past. It's kind of this folk tale, and he made it that basically they ended up on this world. Now, obviously, it's been, I think, 1,000 years in this novel, so they don't recall this, they don't remember this, although the book does start with showcasing some romantic techniques. It's something where people don't believe that humans ever didn't have fairycraft, but yet obviously they did. They have all these histories of the Romantics, and there's things of siege warfare techniques, such as like building catapults and other things, and being able to build stuff without fairycraft. And there's this interesting kind of tit for tat that happens in book 2, but you get to see it a little sense in book 3, and how Tavi is using that logic and those ideas to make up for the fact that he doesn't have fairycraft. So that's really fun. Overall, it's just a great paced novel. It's getting even better than the first 2 books as you're seeing him grow older without, I mean, you're seeing him still have to deal with all these different emotional aspects to not having Furycraft, also growing up, also having to deal with all these difficulties. And you get some really great side character development, even for people like Kitai and for Maximus, of course. And our other main characters, Amara and Isana, really get to flourish as well. And so you're always on your toes. You're always going with the flow with this book. There's never any slow parts. Even when it's purely dialogue, the dialogue matters. It punches you in the face. You're really learning about our characters, about their past. You're seeing them deal with the consequences of living in a society that's not that great. Like, there's loads of problems in Alerian society. Obviously slavery and the sexism and women not having power. And all these things are coming to the fore at the same time that there's all these enemies closing in. So it's just a great, fun series. So if you've been hesitating, I don't think I've spoiled too much right now. So if you're someone who has not read book 1 and book 2 and has been thinking about it, or maybe you were hesitating a bit after reading book 1 or book 2 and you weren't sure if the series was worth it, I mean, the action just keeps on going. It's even more violent. It's got more screwed up shit happening. Great emotional character development. I would definitely recommend it. I'm going to slowly finish off the series. I'm kind of interspersing it with new books that I'm reading. So right now I'm reading, I think it's called Ravencaller. Is that book 2? No, Ravencaller is book 2. So David Dalglish's, I'm blanking on it right now. Bookmarks have fallen. What is book 1 on this? Is it Soulkeeper? Soulkeeper, okay. I'm reading book 1 of David Dalglish's series, The Keepers, and it's called Soulkeeper, and it's really great also. So as soon as I finish that one, I will be doing a review as well. I'll probably read another new book after that and then pop into book 4 of the Codex Alera. I still have book 4 of Superpowers, which I haven't finished. So I definitely want to finish off that series as well. People seem to really enjoy it, and it's probably one of my most commented on series. So I'll definitely check that out and finish it off as soon as possible. Maybe, you know what, I'll just finish it right after Soulkeeper. So let me know what you think down below about the Codex Alera series. Let me know if you liked book 1, book 2. Have you checked out book 3? And if you want, check out the website at geektales.ca. I wish you the best in the new year. It's been pretty quiet here, obviously, because of COVID, but it's been still enjoyable. Maybe I'm that much of a geek and a little bit of a clean freak, but my girlfriend and I actually spent New Year's Eve and New Year's Day literally reorganizing and cleaning the entire condo. And then we just weebed. We weebed and read. And yeah, we're that kind of fun couple. Thanks for listening. Enjoy your day. Peace.